Meeting. So we'll get started here in about a minute. Okay. Travis Hayes is going to be giving a presentation on some of the HVAC issues we're having. Does anybody want a copy of any of that presentation? Anybody else? Anybody else? Me?
It is 7:30, so I'm going to call to order the regular meeting of the board. If everybody will please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There is an open meeting statement on the south wall of the boardroom. All board members are in attendance. Item number 2, our staff and student involvement. We have both of our student board members have submitted their written reports. Do either of you have anything? Do either of you have anything to add to your report?
Yeah, I kind of just want to go off of all the things that we talked about in the previous meeting one day. I do think that it is a very good idea to add on the state competition gym if it's having a bigger gym in space in general. Just because, and obviously like with the locker ranking and wrestling ranks, because from a student perspective, and obviously Garrison here and as well as all the other athletes, the guys that it would be really nice to have, and obviously we aren't going to need that news, but just in terms of like practices, for example, like girls and boys basketball, just to like, I guess for that season, you'll have boys practicing in high school, everyone, usually girls going over to elementary that week, and then obviously flip-flops they had a week, but having this other space in the school would be nicer to have, not to go back and forth between two buildings. And for example, if there's an assembly going on in the high school gym that day, whether it's really the Affections Day, ABC awards, those kind of things, that takes away from that team's practice time after school, so then they have to change around the whole of their practice plan. That's going in the morning, or cutting practice short, or just not even having practice in general. So that is really nice to be able to have it central space, because that darts more chances. And then having a bigger gym would just be nice, because I mean, coming from an athlete who does like parade and the games, those like when you take the ball out of bounds, for example, it can get pretty tight, and you're like almost on top of the people that are in the front row bleachers, and just having that bigger space just make that a lot more comfortable. Just gives a great takes to get that. And then kind of going off the biggest talked about with the cheer and dance room to get into the girls' dressing room. That would be nice to just have that space as a dancer, so you just have that, because you have that entire area covered with mats, and it's not the most ideal thing to practice on, because I mean it's a lot easier with golden goals, whatever, do a few tricks, things like that. And again, you going off of all the mats here in front of the mirrors, don't really take the mats up anymore just because of how much of a hassle it is. And so we get our mirrors taken away, and I mean, being a cheer and dance, you kind of have to have mirrors here. You don't know about all these things. So yeah, those.
And I would like to add, as one of the lucky students to be able to make it into a food and nutrition FCS class. These classes are very popular. You know, as Mr. Martinez said, the attendance has only grown over the years. My class is full, and you know that causes some issues where, like you said, when he wants to take us into the kitchen to have a project, you can only bring half the class in. So the other half is left to just do a small assignment that he will give us. So it's kind of limiting our learning from what could take just one day and then taking 2 or 3, he said. And, you know, it causes some headaches for not only him, but for the classmates. You know, we're bumping shoulders in there. Even just half the class, it's pretty tight in that kitchen area. So, you know, I think a new XCS room would be a huge benefit to our students and Mr. Martinez to get that space that they deserve to be able to get their full education.
You guys have any questions? But well, not only that, but there are report.
Right.
The first bring the lead. Right?
Yes. You guys mind if we excuse them for the rest of the night? I know they've got homework and other things that they'd like to do. If that's okay with the rest of the board, we excuse them for the night.
Yes, well, that's okay. You put in your time.
Yes, thank you for doing.
Yeah, thank you guys. I have not received any public comment papers, so we'll move on to consent agenda. Approved minutes of previous meeting. Were any corrections or comments about the minutes provided?
I didn't see anything.
Sake. Okay. Let's move on to approving claims against the district. Dr. Baker.
Well, it warned you it'd be a pretty busy month with all of the teachers doing their requisitions for next year. And so you can see that we had just under 300,000 in claims this month. That doesn't include any salaries or benefits. For example, to give you an idea, we had 15,000 in claims for Amazon. Well, the entire order was over 49,000 that teachers ordered. So you'll get pretty big bill next month for the rest of it, but they obviously bill it as we receive it. And so that just gives you kind of an idea. We're right in the heart of that. I think in my report, I told you that we have processed in the last 3 weeks over 230 purchase orders for the teachers for next year. We try to get everything ordered out, get it inventoried, get it put away, and so they can leave on summer peace of mind that all of their instructional materials for next year are in-house. The one claim that I would bring to your attention is we had a group of kids qualify for a national FCCLA trip, which is awesome this summer. FCCLA chose to have it in Washington, D.C. at the same time as the 250th celebration. So you can imagine what that does to hotel rooms. And one of FCCLA's requirements is that the kids that compete have to stay in one of the rooms associated with the conference center. That's one of the rules of National FCCLA. So if you looked at the claim, it's $9,000 just for their hotel rooms. We needed 5 rooms. They're about $300 a night, so $1,500 a night for 6 nights, because they also lengthened that conference, and we were fortunate enough to have a kid that was selected as a state officer, so then they have to be there for the duration. So they actually fly out on Sunday and don't come back till Saturday. So that's a week long in DC. We have about another 5,000 in airfare I booked this week, and then there's also the registration that we pay and the meals that we provide for those kids. And so it's going to be a $16,000 or maybe even $17,000 expense to the district. But a few years ago, the board made a decision that if kids qualify for nationals, that we would support that as a district. If we're going to have that organization, that we would financially support it, we would not let a kid's financial status get in the way of their ability to attend. So I'm sure the kids will come back and thank you as a board later this summer. But I just wanted to proactively thank the board ahead of time for making that decision about 10 or 12 years ago, because it is a good experience for the kids who do qualify, and it is a wonderful opportunity. And so on behalf of those kids and their parents, Ms. Martinez, thank you for supporting all of our organizations, not just sports, and in this particular case, FCCLA. We did get all of our Chromebooks ordered and received, so you probably saw 2 large purchases there. One is the 9th grade Chromebooks, the other one is the 5th grade Chromebooks, and those are all in accounted for. And so that was 2 of the other big ticket items. But more than glad to try to answer any of the questions you might have on the extensive list of claims this month. And you'll see a similar list next month.
The MCCLA, is that held the same weekend, right? Every year?
No,
No.
no. The last 3 years, it's been over 4th of July weekend. And so
Okay.
it cost us a lot those weekends too, because
Yeah.
they were 4th of July. But next year,
And
it's like the
different
third week
places
of
every
June.
Okay, and it's held at different?
They rotated. Yep, there was several different places. I can't remember next year.
San Antonio.
Yeah, San Antonio next year, and then it goes, we looked the other day, Indianapolis maybe, and then Anaheim. And all three of those are different weeks than this week.
Okay.
So it's a different location and a different week every year.
Okay.
So,
So,
I think we get a letter. Good letter
so
recommendation.
anyway,
Okay.
so
Are there-
that's-
Okay, any other questions about any of the other claims presented? Right, and we'll go ahead and move on to financial reports.
We're in good shape financially. Our general fund has over $6 million in it. I told you we've been having a good fiscal year, which is good because if the board does decide to move forward with the next building in terms of HVAC projects, we'll need to make a rather hefty transfer into the depreciation fund. And so as of right now, we'll have the ability to do that. Like I said in the earlier presentation, by having, like I said, $6 million in the general fund. That's a little bit more than we had last year at this time, which is good because, like I said, we'll need to make one or two large transfers to take care of the David City Elementary HVAC project if the board so chooses to move forward with that. At this point in the year, we've spent 56% of the budget, almost 57%. And we have, believe it or not, only May, June, July, and August, so 4 months left in the fiscal year. So we're 2/3 of the way through, and we've spent 56, almost 57% of the budget. Depreciation fund, we didn't have any claims in there in March. Employee benefit fund is sitting in good shape. That's the pay flex account for teachers in the district. Activity fund is in good shape. I have no concerns there at this point. Lunch claims, $55,000 this month, which is an average month for us. And so, again, no major concerns there. I will remind the board that you did budget $15,000, I believe, in the general fund for summer meals again this year. My plan is, unless you tell me different, to do what we did last year, in which we gave out gift certificates to our families, to Dales and Didier's. I can tell you it worked out really slick with those two grocery stores, and I can tell you they greatly appreciated the business. So my plan is that we would do similar to last year.
And they have any food supply issues like they did for a while there, or we again most?
We are, it just costs more. And the cost of food continues to rise, but there hasn't been an issue with us not getting stuff, just costing us more. No activity in the bond fund other than, you might have noticed, first time all fiscal year, we got 5 cents in back taxes from Saunders County this month. And remember, we haven't levied into the bond fund since before I got here. So that is, somebody paid a back tax for more than 13 years ago. So we got 5 cents this month. Building fund, like I had said in the last meeting, we did make our large payment to pay off this new addition. And so we are limited a little bit right now. We've only got about $200,000 in the building fund. And so, but I don't anticipate any expense, at least for a couple months there. QC Puff will have a June interest payment, but other than that, no activity there. The other activity we will have in there this summer is we are looking to get some additional security cameras, and we can't purchase security items out of QC Puff. The two areas we're looking at is getting some high-powered cameras in the east parking lot over there by east of the four-stall garage, and then also in the new parking lot across the street. We'll have some satellite cameras over there so we can pick up any unwanted activity in case that happens over there or somebody's car gets hit or any vandalism. And then the last account is student fees, and we haven't had any activity in there since December. More than glad to answer any questions in any of the funds if you have them at this time.
questions on any of the comments presented? Entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items 4.1 to 4.3.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Donnie, seconded by Casey. Justin?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Marcus?
Yes.
I vote yes, Don.
Yes.
Casey?
Yeah.
We do not have any board committee reports.
Unless the curriculum.
Oh, curriculum committee, yeah,
Talk briefly.
yes, curriculum committee met, what day was it? Tuesday.
Yesterday.
Today's Wednesday.
Yes. Yeah.
So we met Tuesday and, yeah, so on the committee is Clay, Casey and I, and, we, were presented with the options for our CTE program, both, FCS, Ag, and SCS. And do you want to say, no, how you thought it went, Clay?
I thought it came very well prepared. Definitely did a lot of background research to provide the best options for us to look at. So I thought it was very good.
Yeah.
Very well.
Yeah, I think that that they kind of want both of our SDS teacher for next year is currently working at another school, so they were not there at the meeting, but we were in a presentation by both our ag teacher and FCS teachers, and they took the curriculum that they're currently using and then compared it to what they would want to have, and then said this is why we want to do this, and this is why it will be better for the kids if we go this direction rather than keep it the same. Is there anything else you want to add?
I mean, both curriculums that they showed are much more engaging than what they're using, I thought, just by looking at the comparatives.
Yeah. And much more teacher friendly.
Yeah.
So,
Well. So yeah.
It was good. Yeah. I mean, and I thought, honestly, very cost effective. They really took that into consideration from,
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll look for that to come as the board.
May.
In May.
Yeah, you'll have the bills to approve for those new textbooks at the May board meeting. So thank you for the committee for reviewing those with the teachers. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Board workshop conference reports. There hasn't been anything recently that we've been to, and I handed back a copy. So moving on to administrative reports, Dr. Baker.
Just wanted to see if you had any questions on the staffing info that I provided in today's report. I just thought it was important publicly to share, just to give you guys an idea that our staffing costs next year will surpass 14 million. When people wonder where, their tax money goes, just to give you an idea, if you didn't get a chance to read my report in detail, we're anticipating a total cost of staff of $13,110,951, and that does not include the staff that we contract with outside agencies like ESU 7, Boys Town, ESU 2, the hospital for things like OT, PT, and speech, and those costs will be over $1 million. So when you add that to our in-house costs of $13.1 million, will be over the $14 million threshold just in salaries and benefits for next year. So it's significant.
Is there anything that any of the administrators would like to add to the workspace? Is there anybody have any questions or comments about?
I don't have questions, I have comments. Your guys' newsletters, all of yours are fantastic. I don't know what we've done this year, but they're so engaging and fantastic. They have leveled up so much. They're great. The teacher spotlight, I was crying reading some of the kids' comments. I love that. Do you share those comments with the teacher?
Every one of those comments can share.
Okay. I was bawling. It was so good. It makes me want to go home. And also conferences, with it being on a holiday weekend-ish, was the attendance okay?
Yeah.
And I like that it was in the classrooms. That was
Screen for us.
yeah. Okay, good. I didn't know if it would be yeah. Okay, that's all. Anything after?
On the same vein as what Casey said, reading through the reports, I just want to say that I wasn't actively crying, but I did get choked up because it's almost overwhelming.
Which is not normal. She's usually the crier.
Yeah, but it's almost overwhelming the amount of things that you and the staff do for students on a daily basis. And your admin reports do a very good job of outlining, these are all the things that we've done within this past month. And it was just like, you know, it was a very feel-good thing to look and read and know that this is what we're providing for our students. And it's actually kind of amazing to know how much care and compassion and it's put out there in the world for the students of our community. And so I know Marcus likes bullet points, but I loved all of the things that are written, and it just makes me, and I love knowing, and I love the data that gets put in there about the different students, about the reading scores. It's good to know about our the PD days and the work that's being done and the data that's being collected as we're working through all of that. So I see those reports and I genuinely appreciate all of those little items that get put in there. So I just want to say that. And like, I don't know how you guys throw that all in. I know you guys have an amazing staff that make it all happen, but I just appreciate you outlining that for us. So we'll move on to discussion action items. So HVAC presentation.
Yeah, you guys hear me talk a lot about the facility advocates and the HVAC needs we have, and I thought it might be important for you to hear from our head of maintenance and some of the issues that they come across on a daily basis, because when I'm sharing it with you, it's simply secondhand, and I'm just spouting out, you know, words that I've heard Travis use, like, oh, I can't believe that ERU isn't working. Or, you know, just, you know, air handling units, like, you know, he'll come and share with me on a daily basis what's going on, like, oh, I can't believe it either. I don't even know what he's really talking about, but I try to engage. And so it's like, let's bring the expert in who can actually answer your questions. Because if you ask me the specifics, I'm going to have to call Travis anyway. And so with that, Travis, would you take a few minutes to kind of share with the board and others kind of some of the concerns of why we're looking at doing these large replacement schedules? So thank you for being here, by the way.
No problem. I'm not sure if anybody threw any of this stuff, not, but I put it all on sheets so it's easier to go back and I used to look at what we were talking about. But at Bellwood, most of the units are from 1994. They're in pretty sad shape, which is obviously why we're replacing it this year. So hopefully we'll be all set in Bellwood after this summer. At DC Elementary and High School, the majority of the equipment is from the 2006 renovation. Obviously, any of the additions built after that have equipment that was put in, you know, the same year. The majority of the building is 2006. Most of the equipment is all still running as intended. We maintain it pretty well. We change filters on a regular basis, grease things as needed. We have our annual maintenance plan for the boilers, things like that. But all of that equipment has life expectancy, and we are at or past most of their useful life from some of them, near 5 to 6 years past their expected life. But at the elementary, just a couple examples of some things that we have issues with. Several of the compressors on the heat pumps in the original 1963 building, once again, those are all from 2006. We had several of those compressors go out, and we've had a couple of them replaced, but you can no longer get those compressors at They don't make them anymore. We can't even find a compatible one in a different brand. We can't get them anymore. So if those compressors go out, those units are irreparable. But each classroom has two. We have a primary unit and a backup unit. And a couple of the rooms, we are down to the backup unit only because we have two compressors that are down currently and cannot be replaced. So we need to look at, at a minimum, replacing those units, which will be different, will match. They may not be compatible with the backup unit. So a lot of things to think about there. We have had to recharge several of the units with the refrigerant, and all of the units in both the high school and elementary school are R22 refrigerant, which was banned in 2020. They can't reproduce it or import it, so it's harder to get because all of it has to be reclaimed from other units. It's obviously more expensive because it's harder to get. So that's another reason to start looking at, possibly replacing. Most of the commercial buildings are transitioning to A2L washings. They're more environmentally friendly and more efficient and readily handled. So it's the upfront cost of replacing the units is obviously more, but you'll save a lot more down the road. Just the higher efficiency and the cheaper repairs. The ERV at the elementary that helps bring in fresh outside air to the gym, that only had a bearing go out, and you have to dismantle the whole thing, and pull the fan out to replace the bearing, and then put it all back together. If the other bearing on the other side goes out, you got to redo the whole thing again. And the bearings do go out even on new stuff, but this stuff is 15 years old. So that is one of the newer things in the elementary school, and it's, already towards the end of its life. The energy recovery unit, that's the ERU, that serves the majority of the building. And the main supply fan failed. That one we had to call in a company to custom fit all new electronic fans because they don't make the replacement fan anymore for that same sort of freight. And with all of the custom work, that came out to be a $22,000 repair. That was just for one fix on one unit. All the more reason that we need to look at start updating these units. At the high school, all of the units in the 1916 building are in the ceiling cavity above the classroom. And those have drip pans that are all in very sad shape. They're rusting out. They start leaking and dripping into the ceiling cavity as soon as the rust will burst, and it soaks the ceiling tile, and eventually the ceiling tile has enough that it'll fall out. Come in the mornings sometimes to find ceiling tiles all over the floor. It's a mess, and to repair those, you have to take all the ceiling tile out, drop half the ceiling grid, and then you have to drop the whole pan of the unit to get to the drip pan or drip tray in there to remove that and replace it. But before you can do that, you have to support the whole unit because the bottom pan that you have to pull is what actually supports it in the ceiling. So you have to make a whole temporary contraption to hold it up there. Long story short, we've replaced about a half dozen pans already, and there's probably another 15 or 20 of them out there that are very close to hike. Several are probably already rusted through, but there's so much rust, it just happens to be holding the wire. But that's just those units in the old classrooms. The two chillers outside in the west asphalt parking area, those are what cool the entire building with the exception of this new addition and the commons and weight room. And if those go out, we have no AC. Those are nearing the end of their life expectancy as well. They're still running most of the time, but at any given time, it's rare that we have both of them ready to run. They run one at a time and they alternate every 24 hours of run time. So if one quits, we have to go back to the other one for 4 hours on it, which happens all the time because we've had several issues with those over the last 5 years. Most of those issues are ones that we need to call train to fix because they're way above our level. We don't have the tools or the knowledge or the parts to fix it. Some of the parts we can't even get. So,
Well, to give you an idea, those two chillers, we've gotten two estimates. I think they were $480,000 just for those two pieces of equipment, just to give the community an idea of what we're talking about, some of the cost standpoint.
and if you're looking at costs for repairs, in the last, since the beginning of last school year, we've spent $28,000 just in repairs for those units. So those repairs add up fast because those units, the majority of the stuff that's done on them, we don't have what we need to do. With all that being said, for the units that are repairable, as I've said before, the repairs are costly and becoming more of a regular occurrence all the time. Seems like once we start having issues with something, it's continual. It just keeps getting worse and worse.
So facility.
But the way we go about doing that is for most of the repairs, our maintenance department will go take a look at it. We will try and self-diagnose, make any repairs we can. If it's something that we don't have the tools, the knowledge for, if it's too big of a project that we don't have the time or the manpower, then we call somebody in, and that's where these late costs are coming in. Since the beginning of last school year, we've spent a total of $68,000 on just professional repairs alone, and that doesn't even include the parts and time that we put in ourselves. So those costs obviously continue to add up. As for the controls that run all of the units, in our two buildings here in Davidson City, those controls are all run by automation. So you got, all of the units are controlled by these automated controls, but they give you a way of, it runs automatically. It gives us, an easy way to access. We can pull it up on the computer. We can see what all of the units are doing at any time. So we don't have to go into every single room every single day and walk in and say, yeah, it's hot, yeah, it's cold, must be working. But that way we can only, we only have to go to a room or any particular area. If we see something that doesn't look right on the computer, then we can go check it out. And that makes it a lot easier not to interrupt classes and things like that, because we can, look and see that everything's working right and not have to worry about interrupting. But those controls at the elementary have been replaced in the last 2 years. The main controls, there are still several controls that are from the 2006 renovation. Each unit has its own control, and then they read to the main controllers, which is what the computer gets the info off on. But the individual controllers are all still from the 2006 reno as well. But for the most part, the elementary controls are working pretty well since we upgraded those, because we replaced all of the controls we had issues with. High school, with the exception of the newest edition, the newest control will be from 2013. Many are also still from the 2006 Renault project. And with electronics, they're all well past their prime. We've had numerous issues, glitches, and things that we can get around. Some of the graphical issues are minor, but we have a hard time getting any of that fixed. So we have had control masters here for a long time, and we don't have a contract with them, so we're kind of on the bottom end of the totem pole when it comes to those minor fixes. So we've had several different pressures, sensors fail, and that is what controls the pump speed. So if that differential pressure between the supply and the return gets too low, then the pump speed increases. When those sensors go out, there's not enough flow to create enough heat for cooling capacity. And then there's a lot of electronic valves. There's hundreds of them. Every unit has one. A lot of the loops have several to direct water flow in a certain way. And those valves, all of those valves are also from the 2006 Renault, so they're 20 years old. And when one of those valves doesn't open, the unit doesn't work here. Even if the fans work, if everything else works, they don't cool with heat. And then we have also several automatic dampers that will open and close to let fresh air in outside. Also in the winter, it'll help pull in cool air, to make your cooling more efficient. You don't have to use as much of your cooling power because you bring your cool air outside. But those automatic dampers have issues. For instance, our air handler in the gym, over this winter, we found that one evening it must have not closed those dampers when it should have. It froze our coil and caused it to leak water everywhere. Thankfully, we found somebody that was able to come in and repair. Actually, facility advocates hooked us up with the guys that could come in and repair it. It's a temporary repair, but it's one that should last until we replace the unit, but it won't last forever. And that's not to say there aren't some other areas that are weak from that getting problems. But a lot of that automatic stuff, it's getting older, it's malfunctioning, and when it does, it causes bigger problems. Those dampers also, when they don't work correctly in the winter, obviously it causes freezing problems, but in the summer, it brings in humidity. And humidity can be a nightmare for a lot of the electronics and ductwork, and that also causes condensation in there, and we've had issues with that. For instance, out here in the new edition even, we had the ductwork was getting a lot of condensation on it and dripping down into the ceiling cavity onto this tile and into the hallway. And that's because you have issues with dampers not closing on the warm days. But anyway, I guess in conclusion, my recommendation is to be proactive and replace the stuff before it causes an issue, because when you have any unit go down in a classroom, that classroom's out of commission until you replace it. And a lot of this equipment, it may be 2 weeks on the low side. It could be a couple months before you even get this equipment in. and then you got to schedule installation. And I mean, you could have a classroom down for quite some time. The weather doesn't permit anybody to be in there. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Sir.
That's exciting stuff.
Yeah.
I got a question. No, those two big chillers we talk about all the time, remind us of when they were put in and how past our. I think it was 23 years. And no,
Yeah.
because I think they're 23-year old.
Yeah.
Their life expectancy is 24. Okay.
Yeah, and they've had several repairs. Like I said, 2 years ago, about we put quite a bit of work into them. We had to fix several fans. We haven't had to put a compressor in one yet, but I mean that could happen any day to either one. We've had to fix a lot of electronic issues because they've been there so long. The ground is settled, and it cracked the conduit underground. It got water in the conduit and shorted the wires out. So, I mean, you got issues like that. I mean, you can't really help. It could happen on newer equipment, but so the compressors and fans and that stuff, it's really aging, and it's something that you really need working, or a full unit is not.
Was it just a couple of years ago where we had classroom tour? Like something went out on the elementary.
Yeah.
You guys remember that?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what chain that was.
Yeah, the reason why I bring that up is just because, you know, you were just saying that you have a couple classrooms over on the backup.
Yes.
Is that basically the plan? Like, is there a plan in place for then if that goes out and we're out of commission, you know, that classroom's, you know, it's end of January, and we're, you know, sub-zero or whatever, you know.
We don't have any empty classroom now.
Right, I know.
We're in trouble.
Yeah, right. So, but yeah,
The only thing you can do here in the middle of winter is bring a space heater in. I mean, obviously the fire marshalling isn't like that. So we'd like our equipment just to run. That's why you have a backup. But when you're down to your backup, that's.
How do those backups work? Like, do that? Obviously, one probably doesn't sit there and never get used. Do they alternate? So they both get used?
The way they're set up now, no. And I agree that's the way they should run, but they've been set up that way for 20 years. But the way they currently run is you have a primary unit and the backup unit. And the backup does run like in the middle of the summer, in the middle of the winter. If the other one can't keep up, it will kick on and help out. And that's why if this one goes out, it's obviously not keeping up. So the backup will kick off.
Is that how new systems are designed the same way?
Well, I guess it depends on who designs them, who installs them. But if I have any say in how it works, I would prefer them to alternate to keep the hours similar on both units. I think every come.
That's what I would say. Like,
now.
well, if we replace it all, we're basically having 2 units for a classroom again, right? It's not saying anything.
That's probably the best way to do it that way if you do have one, because any equipment, even new equipment, is going to have an issue at some point. So to have a backup is the way to go.
I feel like, you know, you said in conclusion, we do better off to be proactive than reactive. We are reactive. I don't think this is proactive anymore. I feel like, I mean, I don't know what I'm hearing. Like, this needs to be done
Well,
yesterday.
it does need to be done, but like I said, most of the equipment is still working pretty well.
With constant maintenance.
Well, I mean, yes.
Yeah.
But I just want something to be done before
Nothing.
it's completely reactive, where you don't have a choice.
Yeah, for your job.
For your entire job all day of doing nothing but fix it.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why Travis and Matt and I wanted to have facility advocates do this before we started another potential project in the district, because we did see the last 2-3 years, the increasing amount of time and money we're spending on it. And so we felt like it behooved us to have that analysis done so you can see all the equipment, how much it is, how much of it's outdated. And so, because that does have to play in your decision about what project comes next. And so that's why we did it when we did, because we thought the timing was right. Before we jumped into another project, we needed to make sure we had this conversation so that it was included in that conversation, because it's not cheap. It's only replacing the furnace here.
And it was nice having them do that breakdown too, because we don't have the time to go. I mean, they went through all of the paperwork, all of the plans, everything that we provided. They went through everything to get the year that everything was installed, because there's a lot of that information I didn't even know, because I don't have the time to thumb through all of that paperwork. Russ, I did it every night before I went to bed.
They analyze it all, potential energy savings with upgrading, but
I don't know if they put dollar amounts in there. I can't remember.
To look at the
I don't report,
but I do know with the lighting, I think they did something with the lighting, because there will be a massive savings on lighting if we go all to all LED. And with the amount that we spent on bulbs every year alone, on top of what savings you're making energy-wise, I mean, it's pretty significant.
And your pushes, yeah.
No, you guys, I just want to publicly thank you guys. We talk about you guys a lot.
Yeah.
And you're not in this room, and hopefully you do. No, I know you save us.
About what you do.
Yeah, you're saving us a lot of service calls a lot of the time. I know you take pride in what you do, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for explaining it. I couldn't have done it better myself, so thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. You can go and work on that golf game.
Yes.
It's too late.
Let's go.
Thank you very much, Travis.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to discussing the long-range facility plan. So, I mean, obviously, what Travis has presented, but then also our community engagement meeting that we had prior to this, and even taking into account Dr. Dinker's presentation and Mr. Goldrock's presentation prior, just kind of next steps and where everybody's thoughts are. Any questions that you might have? Thank you to.
No, I just thought it was important that you guys have the opportunity to kind of digest what you've heard. If you had any initial thoughts or have any direction for me as the superintendent in terms of what you'd like to see me do next. So,
I mean, I thought the engagement meeting was good. We heard both sides. I thought we had a lot of people who had a lot of good input, some stuff I didn't even think about yet. And I'd like to see more people from the community. A lot of our people are people who work in school. So I just think we continue to hold briefs, try to engage more people. I mean, really. I don't get to go through the school. The middle school locker rooms were shocking. I could not believe that we expect 20 kids, let alone 30 sometimes in there. And with football pads, it's nuts. Shocking. And the XCS room. I mean, just in our group, we had 10 people in it. We weren't moving around. Yeah. I hope more people come and tour. I don't know if we're going to hold more tours. We wanted more people to see what we're working with.
Yeah, as someone that did not graduate or go to school here, it was eye-opening to me to see the scale of these rooms. That, I mean, we're talking about how small they are, but till you're in them, we don't realize that we are really lacking in those spaces.
think one thing that I wrote down that I would be interested in knowing, and I don't know how informative it would be, but or how it would affect any decisions that we make. But I do think it would be at the very least interesting to see how our programming offerings have changed and how our activity offerings have changed since the building were built. So obviously 1916, and so, very little was going on activities wise, but even from 1984, when the gym and all of that was built on, it would be interesting to know just, what kinds of things changed in education within the last 47 years, and the opportunities that not only do that we want to give to our students, and we want them to be able to do all a variety of different things that find their path after they leave, but what are those what should we also really be focusing on? What's changed over the years would be interesting to me, and how can we also be proactive in those areas too. Making sure that we're providing space to that, but I don't even know if we have that information. How do you define that information? I'm not sure. Yeah. We have town historian. You say here. Yeah. And I guess the other thing is I appreciated the comment about the preschool, because while I know that's, not in this immediate building project, I really would not want to wait. I think that that's something I don't want to wait a decade from now to be able to put that into place. I think that it benefits the preschoolers themselves to be around those older kids too, and to have good role models and good examples. And it just makes sense administratively, and how we have to deal with different behaviors. It's very, very difficult for the administrators to get from that building over across the street over here. So it would be interesting to me to have more conversations about that aspect too. How that gets somehow dovetailed into the pieces that, if we can't do the gym and FCS room at the same time, like you said, giving ourselves leeway would not be fun to be able to allow for some of those other things. And because that's something that's been discussed for, as we did full day preschool.
Well, I think that how you finance what you decide to do is going to make a difference on that. So like, for example, the board decides that building a new preschool on the north side of the elementary gym makes sense, but you still want to do all the other things like the HVAC and the FCS and the competition gym. Then the board may have to consider more of a 25-year lease purchase, so that maybe that loan payment is 1.1 million or 1 million versus 1.3 or 1.4. So you take that other 300,000 that you're levying in your building fund, and then after 3 years, you've got $1 million set aside and you build a preschool. It gives you the flexibility of doing that. Or building on, I just mentioned briefly tonight, it's another conference room, it's a timeout room, and a sensory room in the elementary. Going a longer lease purchase would free up some dollars in the special building fund to allow you to do some of those smaller projects during the life of the duration of that lease purchase. And so I think that's all part of, what this board needs to have conversations about. It's what are the priorities, what are you willing to bite off all at one time. I will tell you the lease purchase has to be on the same facility. So that's why when I presented you tonight, one of the finance options, you can put the gym, the FCS room, and the high school HVAC all in one lease purchase project. You don't have to do them all at the same time, but it'd be one lease purchase because it's all in one facility. But you can't do a lease purchase for the elementary HVAC and high school HVAC on the same lease purchase. You'd actually have to do two separate lease purchases. And so that's why I presented the option I did tonight, This financially, it probably makes sense to take care of the elementary through appreciation fund and pay cash, and then put the other projects together into some type of lease purchase so that you could get the high school stuff. That would potentially allow you to do, just as an example, both HVAC projects in the summer of 27. You know, you could do the elementary HVAC through the depreciation fund. You could do the high school HVAC as part of an overall project, including it with the FCS and the competition gym. And it would expedite the HVAC replacement. You get it done in 2 summers instead of, which I presented as an option but a couple months ago. All of those options are on the table. It's really just a matter of the board has to kind of start deciding what are the priorities, how much are you willing to bite off at one time in terms of a project, and then let me go, you know, visit with, you know, the different financing companies to come present to you, you know, what those finances look like in real dollars, so that you can make an informed decision.
How much growth can we have before we need to expand? My biggest worry with this whole thing is, you know, we build the FCS, build gym, handcuff ourselves for the next 15, 20 years when we may need to build more classrooms or something like that in 10 years. How much you foresee we can grow before we need to do something different?
We have classes of 63 and we have a class of 39. So we don't have, yes, we have an average class size, but not really. You know, we probably average 45 to 47 is maybe a good number. You know, I think we could actually grow a fair amount in most of our classes before we worry about that, especially like if you look at the new addition, you know, we've got 20, 23 kids in a class. We could go to 30. You know, so we've got the space. Same way by reorganizing the new addition or the 1916 building, put the $500,000 in there. We have teachers in much bigger classes than we did 6 years ago. And so I really do think we can grow a fair amount. You know, we also took, like I said earlier, that we took those half walls out at the elementary so we can fit a whole other row there. We also moved the attendance boundary to Bellwood. We moved it 2 miles, you know, further south, so set toward Bellwood, so that we've got room to expand there. So I guess I'd be pretty shocked if in the next 10 or 12 years, you know, we're going to run into an issue, but I also have a crystal ball. I can't tell you that in 15 years, you know, that we're not going to have an issue because you don't know. You don't know what the surrounding schools are going to do or the private school accountants going to do, because they probably don't know their future either. But
I know that's one of my biggest concerns too. We're getting 12 years into this and growth. I mean, it seems to me growth is keep pushing west from Omaha. I look at it. When I was a kid, UTM was hardly a town. Now it's a huge district, and walking, seeing it, and some of those things, and wondering, you know, now we're seeing more growth at different businesses here, and it looks great. A little scary to wonder what 15 years from now looks like, to be able to adjust, I guess.
I do think, Earl, in that way, if you get to that point, that's when the conversation really heats up about the old Derby, or, you know, like you would feel like if that's the case, it's not an imminent threat of, you know, teachers leaving because class sizes are just unbearable and those types of things. That at least at that point you would know, okay, we really need to do something here in the next couple of years, and you really start thinking about what those next steps are, and you would at least have gotten your full life out of some of this HVAC stuff, and I think then
I'm just thinking financially, like, you know, stories, being able to. I don't want 15 years from now to have to jet tax it up the train or slog tag and something else.
Yeah.
And we don't have a choice because we 10 more classrooms. I have those scary me a little bit.
Those figures that you estimate, those can include any anticipated valuation growth, or is that flat running or on the
Building fund?
yeah, and well, more so in the dollars you anticipate to pay for the lease purchase.
That's just the dollars we're levying. That's not doing anything different.
Yeah, we levy.
We would adjust the levy based on the valuations to set that tax request at that 1.4 million. That's what we've done the last 3 or 4 years. So that levy used to be, maybe 12, 13 cents, and then it went to 11 and 10, and now I think we're just maybe under 9 cents because we've adjusted the levy based on the valuations to get to that 1.4 million.
It's such as the more growth, which is essentially allow us to lower levy and individuals burdened by X amount.
Right. So, and it's just for those of you a little newer on the board, when we first started doing these building projects, maybe about 10 years ago, we had said we were going to do smaller projects and smaller chunks because we didn't want to hamstring future boards for 30 years. And so we were very intentional about doing these smaller projects that we paid off. The lease purchase, this last one was the longest period of time we took, and that was 7 years. Felt like that was a reasonable amount of time to make payments on a project, but we didn't want to do 30. And so, if you decide to do a 20, 25-year lease purchase, I'm not saying you can't, but that is a shift in the culture, what the board has done in the last 10 years. Part of the conversation was, let's not hamstring ourselves and let's be careful of what else down the road. And I don't mean that to scare you and say we shouldn't do the gym or whatever, but I think that needs to be part of your conversation of how many years are you willing to tie up those funds? Because you're all right. If we tie up the 1.1 or 1.4 million, whatever you decide, and something unanticipated comes in 5 or 10 years, you don't have a choice but to increase the tax request at that time. But I don't know how you do that under the current conditions, because right now you're capped at a 3% revenue growth. So if you did have a big growth and you needed 10 classrooms, I don't know how you would do that. Your only option would be a bond. You'd have to go to a vote of the people because a bond is not included in that 3% revenue growth. That 3% revenue growth only applies to the general fund and the building fund.
Ain't that a soft cap though? And if you wanted to go above that, you could get it with the supermajority of our board vote.
That right now, yes. Yes. But that could go away. Could one vote from the legislature
On the flip side,
gets rid of that?
On the flip side of the growth thing, I know people always say we pay taxes in dollars, not levies, and I get it. But the more community grows, that means the more taxpayers there are. So levying the same dollar amount, everybody's taxes are, be relatively as a share going down.
Yes.
And so not everybody always realizes that. But the flip side of my question and Mark's is the fact that we've seen that exponential growth. Board's going to have to be proactive, whether it's us or the next board, to kind of recap that. I think back, there was a couple of years where we didn't raise taxes $1. We kept the same exact tax levy, and I understand why we did it, because we could afford to do it. But I'd rather raise taxes 1 or 2% a year to avoid a future problem where we have to go, much higher because we weren't forward thinking in the fact of it. And so I guess my point is that, if you see this, if we actually do see a spike in growth, that's where the board got to be a little bit more proactive about capturing some of that, because you're going to have to adapt to serve that growth. And so it's going to have to come in forward with tax dollars from those new properties or new buildings or new businesses. And so the board's going to have to be proactive to capture that, and like you're increasing the levy in the special building fund, above and beyond that, if we foresee that happen.
Can you explain to me though, because we have 2 projects, I think maybe that's only one in our community that are SIF. And wouldn't we be capturing those tax practices eventually in
Yeah,
15 years?
15 years.
I know it's in 15 years, but I'm just saying if we get to that point, I don't know how that all works. I don't know how to actually.
Yeah. In some of it, you're going to capture and you can point of contention on what the dollars are, but a lot of some of stuff's personal property, which that can't be tipped. I mean, you're going to capture that right away. So like the equipment. So like a lot of that stuff at AGP should go on here this next budget cycle. I mean, as far as personal property, but the real estate and the building, you know, the physical structure, the building and stuff, yeah, we're not going to see that added to our valuation for 14 more years.
So,
But we're thinking, yeah, in 14 years, you're going to have a massive increase in valuation.
okay, so that's my question is that I need it for my head that when that happens, then potentially then the levy gets dropped because now we have these new
Yeah, you have this
money from
14 years, you have this massive valuation.
Okay.
If you're requesting the same thing, your levy goes down.
Okay. Okay.
And that's always the point of contention with TIF is that everybody uses it nowadays, but it is supposed to be, in fact, this project wouldn't happen if about but
Is it Acres? The other? Who was that? AGP.
I thought it was a housing development.
Yeah, the house. Oh, okay.
no, it's it's like Kinsey's property. I don't know about
We have a lot of projects.
it could be the housing project out there too. I don't know. That one I don't know.
Yeah.
Because of the Casey's property hotel area,